Hey paramotor people, Trey German here. A couple months ago Parajet released their new Maverick frame, and one of the really cool innovations that I saw that I really liked was the kind of snap fit netting that they put on the cage. So if you're unfamiliar with that, basically what it is, it's a piece of tubing that the netting actually attaches to, which slips over the main hoop of the paramotor. This makes it really easy to remove the netting and disassemble the paramotor. Well, I started thinking about it and I thought, well, why the hell can't I make my own? And so I did. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to make your own too. Before we get started, I want to show you kind of what the finished product looks like. You can kind of see what I've done here, where I've taken tubing, just polyurethane tubing, split it down the middle, punched it, and then used that to secure the net. And you'll see that it goes all the way around the paramotor, and it actually works reasonably well. So it's not going to pull off. You would think, like, with how flexy this tubing is, right? It would pull right off, but because we have so much of it around the entire cage, I think it's pretty safe to fly with. So the first step to making one of these is figuring out how big the tubing is that you need. I used a pair of calipers to measure the original tubing on my Air Conception. You can also look it up online. So the Air Conception has a 16 millimeter titanium hoop. Other brands are going to be different. From there, what you can do is you can kind of cross-reference online and find some tubing that has the same inner diameter. So the tubing that I found is I believe it's 3/4 inch outer diameter and 5/8 inner diameter, which is about 0.62 inches inner diameter, which is very, very close to 16 millimeters when you do the conversion. So once you figure that out, you can go ahead and order some polyurethane tubing. I got mine from a company called US Plastics, and this is a 85A durometer hardness tubing. You really want to get the hardest tubing you can, because that's going to mean it's stiffer and less likely to pull off of the hoop of the paramotor. 85A was about as hard as I could find readily available in a size that worked for my application. But you know, you can get custom stuff made if you have deep enough pockets. And then as far as length goes, you're going to need probably about 20 feet. Or that's probably the increment you'll buy it in. I actually used 13 feet on my hoop. Once your tubing is cut close to the correct length for your hoop, what we need to do is go ahead and split it down the middle. And this is kind of probably the most difficult part of this whole project, because there's no real good, easy way to split this. I tried originally using a box cutter, but that didn't work so well. So I ended up using a soldering iron, and I used this little mark on the tube as my guide. So if we look at the tube, and it might be hard to see in the video, but there's kind of a white line on it. I think that's probably the best angle maybe to see it at there. And that's kind of a seam line from where it was extruded. It goes down the entire side of the tube at a uniform kind of place. And so that's a good thing to use as a guide to make sure that we cut straight along the tube. Now what I'm going to use to cut the tube is, you know, unconventional and a little dangerous. You don't want to inhale any of the fumes from this, but I'm actually going to use a soldering iron. So the way I accomplish this is I'm an electronics guy, so I have a bunch of different soldering iron tips, and I found this big fat chisel tip, and I'm going to use this to kind of bring out that mark on the tubing. So I'll just kind of come in here, touch the tube for a second, and if you do it this way, please, 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 you see all these vapors coming off the tip, don't breathe these. You'll get like cancer, AIDS, or something nasty like that, herpes, gonorrhea, litis. But basically it just came through and made little marks on the tubing so that it would be easier to see that line and kind of keep it straight. And these are just kind of light marks here. And then once I went down the entire length of tubing, what I did is I came back and kind of connected the dots. So I would start at 1 and then just kind of slowly move the iron along like so, until I had a nice little groove there. So I'll do a few more here so you can see. And this will keep the seam down the tube nice and straight. And once you've got it to this point where you've got a nice little seam down the entire length of the tube, what you can do is kind of come back through and just put a little more pressure on it to deepen that, and the tube will actually start to split. The other option, if you don't want to split it all the way, you can use this to kind of get a starter groove in there, and then you can come back with a box cutter or utility knife, and that'll kind of help guide your cut so that it stays nice and straight. There are other methods of splitting this tubing that can be used, but I didn't want to build like some special jig or anything like that, because this is kind of a one-time thing I'm going to do. But yeah, I just went through like that, and you can see it'll start to split real nice and easy. And then once that's done, we can start punching. So once our tubing is split, the full length of it, of course, we want to go ahead and put it over the tubing or the hoop of our paramotor, like it's going to be when it's complete. And so once you get it on, it'll kind of look like that. And what we can do is we can come in here. I'll do 3 since I've got this small piece here. And we're going to mark this with a Sharpie or some other type of marking implement to show us kind of where we need to put our holes. Once you do that all the way around the whole hoop, go ahead and take the tubing off, and we can start punching it. Now that the tubing is marked, we need to punch it. There's a couple different ways that you can do this, right? You can get a drill and drill through this material. What I chose to do is actually get a rotary punching tool off Amazon and use this to punch the tubing. Now, this is the nice one. It's a Nipex brand. It's from Germany, it's designed to be used on like leather for like arts and crafts kind of stuff. Not really designed to punch through polyurethane tubing. After I did about half of my hoop, the punch that I was using started to kind of dull a little bit, and so I had to switch to a different size to finish my hoop. But overall, it did work pretty well. So what you're going to do, you're going to take your tubing, and where you marked it, let's see if I can hold this and punch at the same time. Where you marked it, you're going to take your punch, go in there, and punch a hole. Just like that. You can kind of twist it a little bit, and when you get done, you'll see there's a nice little hole that you'll be able to shove your netting through. If we take a step back, before you go and do that, you may notice that your dots are kind of an uneven distance from the edge of the slit in the tubing. The first time I did this, I actually took a measuring tape and measured from the edge up about a ½ inch and remarked the tubing so that they would be at an even spacing from the slit on the tubing. You know, you can do that, you cannot do it. I guess it just depends on how anal you are. I wanted this thing to be perfect the first time, and so I went ahead and did that. So at this point, we're finally ready to start putting the net into our tubing. I got my net from a guy in Canada. His name is Rod Guroff. I'm sorry if I said that wrong, pronounced that wrong, Rod. He hand makes all of his nets out of Dyneema material. And he was kind enough to actually send me a little extra, because I told him about the project I was doing, to use to retain the end of the net actually inside the tubing. So the way this is going to work, you're just going to find the end of the net. We're going to stick one of the hoops at the end through one of the holes, and then we'll thread a line through that to retain it inside the hoop. So here's what that looks like. Chin tripod. Okay, so here's our first hole. Take this. Of course, yours will be longer. I'm being lazy here. And if you do have trouble getting this through the hole that you made, which I oftentimes did when I did this the first time, I got a bamboo skewer, like for grilling or making kebabs. You can actually use that to push that through and then kind of fish it through once you get it. So we'll just continue this process. Get in the hole.
Yeah, it's a tight fit.
I guess you could choose to lubricate this with, like, I don't know, some WD-40 or something, if you're having that much trouble.
So, now that we've got a couple lines through, what I'm going to do is actually fish it out side of the hoop, like that. And that's going to help me more easily access these. So, I can run the line. So,
once you've got these out and through, kind of like this, we need to start running our line to retain it in the tubing. So I'm just going to go through each of these. And once again, if you're having trouble, right, there's not a lot of distance here, you can kind of pull this one back in. That'll allow you to pull the next one out a little bit further.
oh, come on. No one said this was easy. This is a time-consuming project to complete. And we just go through. And through and through and through.
And so you would continue doing this along the whole length of the tubing. Once you're done, you can pull these in to kind of help place the line inside. And then you can knot the ends. So when you're completed, the whole hoop should kind of look like this. And then once you knot the ends so that it can't come off, you're ready to go ahead and put it on your motor. Once you get everything put together and the netting all secured, you should end up with something like this. And you can go ahead and toss it on your motor. Tighten your net as you normally would. And yeah, now you too are a Maverick. I hope you found this video fun and informative. If you end up making your own, give me a shout and let me know how it goes. Yeah, fly safe, guys.